Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's podcast. So, today we'll be speaking about forgiveness and why it is the key to moving forward. And more importantly, people will tell you why you need to forgive, but they don't always tell you how to forgive. And that's what we'll be covering as well. So, stay tuned.
So, maybe a good place to start then would be with the definition of what forgiveness in fact is, because I think a lot of people would have a different understanding of what forgiveness is.
So forgiveness is the intentional decision that one makes to let go of anger and resentment. And when you do that intentionally, you actually allowing yourself to let go of what you've been holding on to for so many years or months or whatever the case might be. And it is quite freeing to do that. However, I have found, especially in our practice, that clients will come here, they're not doing well emotionally, mentally, spiritually because of what they're holding on to, all that past baggage, all that resentment, all that anger for what has been done to them. And usually it's related to childhood or even, in the adulthood. And many come here refusing to forgive, refusing to let go.
And why do you think that they find it so hard, though, to forgive and to let go?
Well, maybe it's important to first highlight what people believe. And people have these very negative perceptions about forgiveness. So let me start by saying what forgiveness is not. So forgiveness does not make us forget. Forgiveness does not remove the consequence of the wrongdoing. Forgiveness does not rebuild trust. And forgiveness does not always result in reconciliation. And most of us believe that we have to forget when we forgive. We have to, condone the wrongdoing. We have to rebuild trust. And we have to automatically reconcile with this person. And that's the misconception. By forgiving, you don't necessarily have to condone. You don't necessarily have to say to someone, I forgive you, and automatically now I need to trust you again. And because of this misconception, because people associate forgiveness with all of these things, they then feel by forgiving, they're giving away their power. They're giving away their free will to still hold on to what actually happened.
Okay, yes, it makes a lot of sense that people would struggle to forgive because of what they believe forgiveness is and what you are saying in terms of what it's not. It's the direct opposite probably of what people think would have to occur and happen if they were to forgive, that they would have to reconcile or that the consequences of their actions is like totally okay now or something like that. The important thing, I think, listening to you speak also with regards to those 4 points you're making is that if I'm the one that wants to be forgiven, for example, that I keep those 4 things in mind in terms of it doesn't just mean that I've now rebuilt my trust with you the moment you forgive me. That's a different process on its own. As well as the consequences to my actions are now, okay, it's completely ignored, or the fact that you've forgiven me and now I need to know that you will not just forget that. So that's I think it's actually very insightful, very, very profound. I don't think people necessarily look at it like that.
And yet if you sit and you actually, ponder about it, then I'm pretty sure 9 times out of 10, you actually believe that when you forgive that you need to do those things as well. And that's not the case. However, why people then might ask, okay, so if I don't need to rebuild trust, I don't need to do all of these things, then why do I need to forgive? And so that's really what I want to talk about is, why do you need to forgive? Because there's this other misconception that when I don't forgive, that the person I'm not forgiving is suffering as a result of that.
Okay, yeah.
And that's a huge misconception, because if I'm not forgiving you for what you've done, hypothetically, where's the resentment? Yeah, it's not sitting with you. In my mind's telling me, I'm not forgiving you, so you're the one suffering. But if you actually, reflect within, it's affecting you. Resentment can literally eat at you. And from my experience personally and experience with so many clients, even clients with cancer, I remember one particular client, I asked her, she was in remission, but she knew she needed to deal with the emotional root causes of her illness, because her illness, yes, it's physical, but our body is a barometer of the soul. So if the soul is not in a good space, it is going to affect our bodies. So if I'm holding on to resentment and I'm holding on to anger, it literally manifests into something as severe as cancer, which is literally eating at you. And so when I deal with cancer patients, the one question I will ask is, so what is eating at you? And there'll be loads of things that'll come up in terms of, well, this I'm not happy with, this has affected my life, this deep guilt and resentment I'm still sitting with. And it's usually, they've even done studies that 80 to 90% of physical illnesses are emotionally based. And the reason for that is because we hold on to the things that have affected us to a point that our bodies literally start screaming at us to pay attention, to wake up, and to start moving forward.
That's interesting. The fact that you say it's eating at them, and another word for eating, I guess, that you could replace it with is consuming. So they allow those thoughts and that resentment and that anger to consume them on an emotional level, I guess. And so physically that plays out in the body, you're saying, like in terms of cancer or other illnesses or whatever that may be. So it consumes them to that level.
Interesting enough, I've read 80 to 90% of illnesses are actually emotionally based. Gabor Mate, in one of his talks, I heard he said all illnesses, he blatantly said all illnesses have a psychological root cause. And what that actually means is that our illnesses manifest. So let's use the example of our cells that replicate, right? So our body has the ability to heal, right? And when, for example, every 3 days there's a new layer of our eyes. When we cut ourselves, there's a small cut. Within a few days, you'll notice it is healed. Whether you put a plaster on or not, it doesn't really make a difference. So the body is designed to heal. So what happens is people then develop these illnesses later on. And how that works is, let's say your cells are replicating. And they're functioning normally and they're just doing what they need to do. When you go through something negative or something traumatic, that experience gets stuck in your cells. And typically years later, you'll find that in that area, disease starts to happen. Why? Because you haven't really dealt with what has happened to you, and you haven't really let go. So what I'm highlighting here is the importance of, while I have this beautiful opportunity, that people with illnesses out there, yes, the medical industry has solutions available, and sometimes people need to go through different treatments to get to the result that you want. For example, depression or anxiety, you'd go to a psychiatrist and go on meds, and sometimes it's trial and error until you find the solution. And just reminds me of another client that I've dealt with that went on this path, had depression, had anxiety, went to a psychologist, went to a psychiatrist, went through the different meds, went through a period of this works, this doesn't work, this has a negative effect. And what he did at the same time, though, was come and see me, and we spent the next 12 weeks, which is 3 months, working weekly on all the emotional root causes of what he was experiencing. And as a result, and I'm not saying this is always the case, I definitely believe there's, solutions in every aspect, whether it's the medical industry, whether it's, from a psychological perspective, there's always solutions. And it doesn't mean that if you're opting for one that you need to negate the other. I think they work hand in hand. But coincidentally with him, he was able to wean himself off the meds. He, funny enough, didn't tell anybody because his wife was not going to have it, because she really, coming from the medical profession as well, insisted that, he stay on the meds. But he was able to wean himself off. He implemented a good diet, a good healthy exercise regime, and he let go of years and years of baggage that we addressed in every single session, every week on week, to a point that he's doing really well. And so it is a clear example of how the body has the ability to heal. And what did come out of those sessions is he had to forgive his parents for what he's been through. He had to actually deal with certain experiences, certain traumas, to be able to move forward. And so what I'm saying really is that you have the ability to do that. And the tools are available, whether you're going to, work with a coach one-on-one. I mean, there's journey therapists that specialize in this, which is what I am. But, there's so many other tools available in an NLP, negative emotional therapy, hypnotherapy, which all can deal with past baggage and past trauma to be able to allow you to forgive.
Okay, so do you find that people are initially very, what's the word I'm looking for? Do you find people initially are very, perhaps, skeptical in terms of the mind, the body, and the emotional connection, and the effects that the emotion has on the body?
Absolutely, because we're so conditioned to believe that we're just physical.
Okay.
Right? So it's the physical appearance. It's the focus on you're a physical being. And a lot of us only identify with that. So let's use an example of you're watching a movie, right? And there's this emotional scene. So depending on what time of the month it is, you would just end up getting really emotional as if you're part of the story. So if you were only physical, then you should be able to just cut yourself off from what you're seeing visually and be able to not connect. Yet you do connect. When there's an explicit scene, for example, of a couple that's getting intimate, you feel those reactions in your body. Why? Because you are emotionally connected to your body. And so it is very important, and it's good that you bring this up, because it's very important for people to realize you're not only physical, you're emotional, you're mental, you're spiritual, you're social. There's so many aspects of you that work hand in hand. And so when we become ill, we only deal with physical. Yet people that have specialized in their fields can concur that your emotions do affect your body. Your past traumas do affect your body. Your mental state does affect your body. And I mean, if you can even think about it, days you feel down, if you were to just stop and think, what am I thinking about? What am I obsessing about? It's all negative. The days you feel good, what's happening in my life? I'm around people with great energy. I'm exercising. I'm having fun. I feel good. So automatically the mental and the emotional affect the body. And I honestly believe that if your soul is in a good space, your body's going to be healthy. And if your soul's not in a good space, which means you're holding on to anger, to resentment, to all these negative emotions, it is going to affect the way you feel. And I ask anybody now that is experiencing that or is in denial about that, check in your body. How are you feeling? Are you feeling heavy? Are you feeling down? Are you finding it difficult to motivate yourself to move forward? It's usually a beautiful way for your body to tell you. And I always believe you need to listen to your body, because your body is always talking to you. It's a beautiful way for your body to actually say to you, hey, wake up here, pay attention. Something needs to change. And it's, if you see it from that perspective, then you can see those experiences that you've been through as an opportunity for growth, as an opportunity for healing, as an opportunity to elevate your consciousness and your energetic level when you let go of these things.
One of the other reasons that I feel, perhaps personally, why certain individuals struggle to forgive is because they identify so closely with that story. So they're unable to distinguish between the story and the experience and themselves as an individual. Do you agree with that? Or?
I do, and especially when it comes to, your personality type. Certain people don't want to let go of the story because the story is who I am. I can share it with you, and every time I share it, I'm doing it so that you can feel sorry for me. But what you're actually subconsciously doing is you're reliving that experience over and over and over. So for people that are like that, I'm really encouraging you to stop.
Yeah.
You are not your story. It is an experience that happened, yes. Was it a great experience? Possibly no. Is it acceptable by society? Definitely not. But does it mean you need to hold on to it? Because what you've done is you're this beautiful being and you're identifying with one instance in the past that is keeping you stuck, that is keeping you depressed. And what is depression? It is when you're focused on all your past experiences and you replay them over and over and over. But when I speak to you about, hey, and you find this with people, you don't want to be in their energy in this space because they're always negative. It's always about what happened to them. And did you hear my story? But what it's doing is you are reliving that experience every single time you retell that story.
Now you speak about it could be, for example, a personality trait. And I think individuals who have that as a personality trait, where they have at their most basic desire at their core is to be unique and to be different compared to anyone else. So why they hold on to their story is because the one thing that makes everyone unique and different is the story, is your individual background. So those individuals continuously hold on to that story and they're afraid to let go.
Which is so sad and unfortunate because you're so much more than your story.
Yeah, exactly.
And I suppose we can only highlight and make you aware of the behavior so that, I always say awareness is just beautiful. It's key because once you're aware of something, you can start changing and transforming that. And so I hope it inspires those that do identify with their story, because then I'm the victim. Everybody needs to feel sorry for me, but not everybody wants to be that continuous cheerleader of, oh, shame, really? And what they start doing is they start avoiding you because it's just too much. The energy that you give off is too much. And people have their own challenges. So it is so much easier for you to be able to let go. And let's say it's habitual. Let's say this is how you've always been. Go find a coach that can work with you to be able to change that, because the good news is you can change. You can transform. You can let go of these limiting beliefs that is holding you back. And more importantly, you can let go of the stories through deep, subconscious work with a coach like what we do. And why I speak about this so passionately is because we've seen firsthand with our own experiences. We've seen firsthand with the clients that we've worked with. There's a huge transformation from when they start to when they end up going through an entire program of self-development and self-mastery.
Okay, so besides physical ailments or disease or illness, what are the effects then of someone that refuses to forgive and to let go?
Well, firstly, if you're not going to let go, where is it? It's here. So it might not manifest immediately, but over time, you are going to see the effects of that, whether it develops into disease or, for example, something more psychological like depression or anxiety. It's going to manifest. And when you're young, your body's still, very healthy. It can sort of cope with those stresses. But over time, because you remember, it's stuck energy within you. And so over time, it's going to manifest into some sort of disease.
I suppose just like your daily living as well would be affected, especially, for example, if the person you need to forgive, for example, is still within your surroundings. It creates a lot of awkwardness on occasions. It holds you back in terms of progressing and achieving your goals and living your life. I mean, there's a lot of people that just avoid each other. And these are effects of not wanting to forgive and not wanting to move forward. But I hope that because you explained what forgiveness is, not that people will be more willing to forgive.
So we agree that forgiveness is not easy. Yeah. And we agree that sometimes it takes time for you to process what you've been through. So I would definitely encourage, allow time to pass, but at some point make the conscious decision that you want to move forward. And when you make that conscious decision, what you're actually saying to yourself is, I'm ready to let go. It doesn't mean I'm condoning it. I'm just ready to let go. And because we understand how the mind works, and if I could very quickly explain, consciously we're speaking to each other. We're using 5% of our brain capacity. Subconsciously is where all our memories are stored, all our beliefs, all our behaviors are stored in our subconscious mind, which means that experience is stored in our subconscious mind. So a lot of the times our willpower is stored in our conscious mind, which is 5%. So a lot of the times we will ourselves to want to forgive and override this 95% of our subconscious that is still holding on to that resentment, to that anger, to those experiences. And so you'll find that sometimes you want to forgive, but it's not that easy. And I fully agree, because we understand how the mind works, and you can't use 5% to override 95%. The good news is that you can work with a coach that will take you into deep processes where you access your subconscious mind, and you go through a process of, emptying out, going through that experience maybe for the last time, and not necessarily even going through the experience, just facing the person that has caused this dis-ease within you. And you can do that without having to face the person, which is the beautiful thing. And most of the times, if not 9.95 times out of 10, you come out of those processes and those sessions feeling much lighter. Why? Because you've let go on a deep subconscious level. So that's one option. The other option is to do a forgiveness meditation, and we have a forgiveness meditation, so you can maybe check that on our YouTube channel, and we'll post the link below as well, on a guided meditation. And the moment you are in a meditation, you are relaxed, you access your subconscious mind, and you follow the guide so that you are able to follow the process and actually let go, which is also a beautiful, simple way. Things don't need to be complicated. There's always solutions for everything that we're going through. So it's a really simple, invasive way to address what you've been through and to let go.
So how would you then go about forgiving someone that's not around anymore? Maybe they passed on.
So that's a good question, because a lot of the times it is past baggage that we're holding on to. And sometimes you want to forgive, but the person's not there anymore. And so now that resentment and anger turns to guilt, because you didn't have the opportunity to really empty out with this person, to really reconcile with this person, to heal with this person, or heal as a result of forgiving this person, or this person forgiving you. So it just reminds me of a client, a beautiful client that was not in a good space, and she was so desperate, and she came to see me. And I said to her, sometimes when you need to face your stuff, then the mind checks in and gives you 100 reasons why you shouldn't go through with this. You'll get through it. And that's why I always say, thank you to the clients that do come and see us, because it takes a huge courage to face your stuff, right? And she came, and we did, I think it was like a 2-hour session, and we did a lot of emptying out, a lot of, putting things into context, and then doing a process to take her back. And her dad came up, and I always say, let your soul guide you on what needs to come up first. And her dad came up, which is actually the person that did pass on. And she was able to really empty out to him in this process, in this deep subconscious state, and let go. And through this process, what's so beautiful is when she came out of this process, she was glowing. And for me, it's always a confirmation of this misconception that when I don't forgive, it's going to hold that person back. But when I don't forgive, it actually holds me back. And so to just see her face light up, her eyes, eyes are the window to the soul, and her eyes were like glass. It was just, and automatically that heaviness was gone. And she couldn't believe how this, experience had transformed her whole experience with her dad. And, I remember she didn't want to forgive, and we had to kind of, use different techniques to do it in small doses to be eventually, to forgive. But she did reach a point of forgiveness. And up to this day, she'll, just check in with me and let me know, that was such a profound experience. She's doing so well. She was able to move forward. And I'm not saying, it's going to take one session and you're going to be sorted. But if it's something that's really pressing, because sometimes those traumas and experiences can lie dormant within you for years. And then at a specific time, for a reason that's unexplained, something will trigger it and something from your past will come up. And so that is why sometimes you can function normally, and just, a year or two later, you can just feel like, okay, what's going on? I feel heavy. I feel stuck. I feel like, emotions are coming up that weren't there before, or that I buried for so long. Because what we do, subconsciously, is sort of suppress and repress to be able to cope and function.
Okay, but at the same time, I could flip that scenario around where I'm the one that wants to be forgiven, but the person's not there anymore. What do I do in that case?
Well, in that case, again, a process like I just explained would work. Because ultimately, all forgiveness is self-forgiveness. I always say that. So whether it is you that needs to be given, or whether someone else needs to be given, the whole act of forgiveness sets you free. And so a guided process with a coach would definitely work. A guided meditation, and you focus on forgiveness of yourself in that meditation, would definitely work.
Do you find people struggle to forgive themselves, though?
Yes, they do.
More so than others?
More so than others. And what I find is, especially, we do a 12-week program, and I find that as we progress week on week and they've dealt with people in their lives, ultimately, and this is the part I get excited about, is no more people come up anymore. No more traumas come up anymore. They face themselves and younger versions of themselves. And that for me is a telltale sign that they've let go of a lot of their baggage. Because, sometimes we blame, my dad, my mom, but ultimately beneath all of that is actually the need to self-forgive. So in conclusion, we, work one-on-one with clients, but in the absence of that, we do this to also spread a message to everyone around forgiveness. And so we spoke about, a lot of people will tell you need to forgive, but they don't tell you how to forgive. And so we've developed we've developed a meditation that specifically would deal with forgiveness. And hopefully soon after that, we'll load another forgiveness meditation on YouTube that is specifically designed for self-forgiveness. And so if you do want to give that a try, I would suggest that you do. We're trying to keep it to 10 minutes so that, it's something that doesn't become cumbersome. But I can tell you, when you do this, it takes 10 minutes of your time. But when you're able to bring up somebody that you are, finding it hard to move past in terms of what they've done to you, I would highly recommend this, because when you do, I promise you, if this person's still around and still in your midst, you'll notice after that you are able to, the energy is different. Why? Because subconsciously, on a deep level, you were able to let go and to forgive. And if you're not at that point of forgiveness, then at least make the intention that you want to get to a point of forgiveness, because you understand that by holding on to it, it's actually negatively affecting you.